Baby is sleeping over here. Everybody else is out of the house. They're going for a cycle to the shop. So I was like, right, perfect timing, perfect opportunity to talk about some books. Welcome back to Stitches and Books. My name is Becky and welcome to my slightly cluttered living room. I thought I would try recording down here today because there's a bit better light. Sorry, the light on my glasses is annoying. I'll take them off and then I'll be like squinting, but I won't have annoying reflection on my glasses. My reading tracker in my reading journal is looking great. I'm really happy with how my reading has been going so far this year. I was just on the cusp of feeling a bit slumpy. I picked up a couple of books that I was excited, one of which I was really excited to read, another of which I really want to read, but it's a difficult read. I want to read it, but I think it's going to be one that I'm just going to read. It's not very long, so it's not going to take me long to read it in chunks. I'm just going to have to read it as I feel like I want to. But I do really want to read it, even though I'm not enjoying it exactly. Yeah. But I want to read it, so I will read it at some point, but it's just taking me a little while. And because I was reading that book and then another book that I was excited to read, but that was also just not doing it for me at that particular point, I was like, oh, I can feel myself starting to slump. And then I picked up Wayward by Amelia Hart, which I'm not going to talk about too much because that's for later. But I'm really loving it, and that's kind of pulled me back out. And I picked up another book yesterday that I'm really excited to start reading as soon as I finish Wayward. So I think as long as I kind of focus on my mood and what I'm in the mood to read, I think my reading should carry on pretty strong. The first book that I finished this year was Rewitched by Lucy Jane Wood. Sarah Jane. And I started this in August of last year and I really enjoyed it, but for some reason it took me like 6 months to read it. At first when I started reading this, I wanted to record me reading it. I wanted to do like a cozy reading vlog, just reading this and like lighting candles and things, and I was pre-recording it so that it could go out like when I was on maternity leave. And I think because I was planning to only read this while I was recording, it really slowed down my reading of it, because I was like, oh well, I don't want to record right now, so I can't read that book. And then I had to I got to a point where I had to choose whether or not I wanted to continue with the vlog or whatever. I decided not to continue with the vlog and just to read the book. It still took me quite a long time to read it, but I loved it. So I don't know why it took me so long to read, but I really loved it. I gave it 4.5 stars. And it was cozy, and yeah, I enjoyed it. So I'm just disappointed that it took me so long to read it. I think I have pre-ordered the third one. Oh, my hair, sorry. I think I've pre-ordered the third one, and I just need to get the second one to read that one before. I think the next one is Bewitched. I think the next one is Recharmed, and then is the last one, or the third one, Disenchanted, something like that. So I need to do that. But that was the first book of the year that I finished, and I really loved it. I've got all sorts of notes all over the place. Then the next book that I finished, which was an audiobook, but I have a physical copy here because I enjoyed it so much that I wanted like a shelf trophy, and that was Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. This book, I had people like warn me that it was going to be an emotional ride, and it really, really was. There were definitely moments where I had to sort of stop what I was doing and was literally like listening with my hand over my mouth, and like a couple of moments where I was actually like out, like I'm usually one of those people that's like, while I'm listening to audiobooks, but I don't talk while I'm listening to audiobooks. But I definitely remember standing in my bedroom listening to a particular point with a particular tribute, and I remember just going, oh my god, like it was so emotional, the whole thing. But I really, really enjoyed it. It was definitely a difficult read, but I really loved it, and it like got me re-interested in the Hunger Games again. So we like watched all of the original trilogy films, and I'm going to listen to the original trilogy again. And then I'm also going to listen to whatever the snow book is, Serpents and Songbirds, I think it is. Really enjoyed that. That was my first audiobook of the year. It's actually the only audiobook that I finished this year. It's really interesting to see how my reading changes. Sometimes I'm like really heavy on the audiobooks and I have almost no time to listen to read physical books. Sometimes it's really heavy on the Kindle books. This year it seems to be really heavy on the physical books, which I'm really pleased about. So that was the next book that I finished. Then I read The Christmas Tree Farm, and what's the next one that I read? Oh no, it was just that one. The Christmas Tree Farm by Laurie Gilmore, and this is from the Dream Harbour series, and I really loved it. It was probably not my favourite of the whole series, but I still really enjoyed it. It was cosy, very spicy. It was exactly what I wanted from the books. I'm reading those, or I was reading those on my Kindle in the evening, so they were taking me a little while to read through. But yeah, really enjoyed it. 4.5 stars. Then I read on, like, basically Andrew, my husband, has been, every time I finish a book, he's like, are you going to read this book next? So I read the book, and it was The Honjin Murders by Seishi Yokomizo. I feel like I should be able to say that because I am learning Japanese at the moment. The Honjin Murders. This was great. I only gave it 4 stars, but I really, really enjoyed it. I think it's probably like, I don't know why I gave it 4 stars. I feel like it deserves at least 4.5 stars. I really loved it. It's a like murder mystery story. It's a locked door, closed room, I can't remember what they're called, mystery, and I was very satisfied by the conclusion, and the translation is great. I have read a couple of books recently where I felt like the translation maybe took away from the story, but this one, the translation was like perfect, and I think possibly even to the extent where certain parts of Japanese culture that would be like understood and known to Japanese readers are then explained just a little bit extra. Like in the translation, there's some stuff that's mentioned that I feel like probably isn't mentioned in the original text, but that the translator has added. I haven't checked that. I don't know if that's true, but either way, some of those like little things that are sort of cultural that you might not understand if you weren't Japanese, or like very knowledgeable about Japanese culture, they're explained. So that kind of means that the story flows really, really nicely. So yeah, really, really enjoyed this. That was great. I would definitely recommend, if you like sort of Poirot kind of murder mystery. I really liked, if you read A Case of Mice and Murder, this is another similar sort of satisfying, interesting, it's like historical fiction as well. Like, yeah, it's really, really good. This is the shortest one. There's quite a few, well, there's loads in the series, but only like 8 or so have been translated so far. And my husband's read all of the translated ones and he loves them all. So I'm going to read the whole series eventually, but this is the only one I've read so far. But yeah, really, really enjoyed that. Next, oh, that was 4 starting. Next was The Healing Season of Pottery by Yeon So-min and translated by Claire Richards. This one was a 3-star read for me. I wonder if I can put my glasses back on now. Oh, they're really dirty. I wanted this book to be like cozy, non-spicy fiction. And it was, but there were just a few things about it that didn't hit for me. It's translated from Korean. I think that there were times, so having just read The 100 Murders where the translation was like perfect, the translation on this one felt a bit like occasionally there were little things about like maybe Korean etiquette or Korean culture that weren't explained and I didn't understand them. Like some of the ways that people referred to each other didn't make sense to me because I'm not familiar with like honorifics and things for Korean, so that kind of bit was lost, and sometimes I felt like it was important that we knew that a character was referring to another character in a particular way. I feel like the main character was sort of neurospicy coded, but I don't know, I was talking to my mum about it, she hasn't read it, but she was like, is it like neurodiversity or was it just a different culture? I think it was neurodiversity. There were definitely things that made me think neurodiverse rather than just different expectations of culture. But the baby awakes. Oh no, he's fine. But I feel like it would have been easier for me to decide whether or not it was different culture or like neurodiversity if some things had been explained, even if there was just like a guide in the back about certain things. That would have been really helpful, and also a list of characters would have been really helpful. This one, I'm going to refer to this one because this is like such a good example of translation. Hang on, I'm just going to get the baby. The baby. Yeah, at the front of this one there was like a cast of characters, and that was really helpful because if there was somebody that I had forgotten who they were, then I could just flick back to the beginning and be like, oh, how are they relevant? Oh yes, they're related to this person this way. Whereas with The Healing Season of Pottery, you know, I'm not very familiar with Korean names, so it was a little bit harder for me to remember exactly who everybody was. So my mum said, could you write your own? I could have written my own. At the point at which I realised it would have been helpful, it felt a bit too late to go back and do it. If you're going to read this, I would recommend, if you're not very familiar with Korean names, maybe just jotting down who everybody is so that you can keep track a little bit. And maybe, I think if I were to read it again, which I'm not going to, I might just do a little bit of research about honorifics and things like that so that I knew how I would expect everybody to be referring to each other. The main character, it's commented upon that she speaks quite formally to people even though she's quite familiar with them, which is one of the things that made me think that she might be autistic, because she seemed a bit surprised when people used less formal ways to speak to her, and then she continued to speak quite formally with people even though she was quite familiar with them. So there was that. At the beginning she has what I think was probably some like a burnout incident. She basically like quits her job and then spends a year in her house, and I think that's probably that sounded like burnout to me. So yeah, I think I would say trigger warning check on this as well. There's there's like death of a parent off page, there's a car accident, what else was there? It's been a little while since I've read it. There's a few things that I think it might be worth just checking trigger warnings on. But it was cozy. I liked the pottery description of it. I had to check that the writer was actually a potter, because I was like, I really like the description of all this pottery stuff. I want it to be accurate, because if it's not accurate, I'm going to be really disappointed. But she is a potter, so that was fine. So yeah, it's like, it was 3 stars. It wasn't terrible. I didn't love it. It wasn't everything I was hoping it was going to be. It took me quite a while to read it because of that. Like, it's not very long, but it really did take me quite a while to read. And yeah, but there we have it. I did read it. I'm going to unhaul this book because I'm not going to read it again. I can't think of anybody that I would like to pass it on to. Sorry, I'm holding the baby now, so I'm like slumped down. I can't think of anybody that I could pass it on to, so I'm probably just going to take it to our local Oxfam Books, and hopefully it can find somebody else who can enjoy it. I think these are actually my February reads I'm talking to you about, not my January reads. Let's just carry on with this list and then I'll go back to do January. I was talking through these and I was thinking, I definitely read that book in January and it's not on my list of things to talk about. And that's because I'm talking about February books. I'm very tired. Okay, next book that I read, and I'll put a picture up here if I remember, was Cinder House by, name has completely escaped me, but it will be on the cover or I'll put it down here somewhere. And this book, I was using it for a challenge on Goodreads, somebody's reading challenge, and it was to read a book by an Australian author, and or like connected to Australia in some way. And I loved this book. It's called Cinder House, I don't know if I said that, and it's a Cinderella retelling, and it's a like, oh, what's the word I'm looking for? It's kind of a sentient house story, which I feel like I've heard a few people talk about, and they enjoy this as a kind of trope. I really liked it. I was not sure how it was going to work, but I really liked how it worked. I thought it was a really nice like approach to a Cinderella story. It was definitely Cinderella, but not like exactly Cinderella. It's slightly queer. When I was reading about it, I thought it was going to be more queer, and it was only slightly queer, but that's fine. I really enjoyed it. It's a short book. I gave it 5 stars. I want to get a copy. I borrowed it from the library because I wasn't sure whether I was going to love it, but I really loved it, so I'm going to buy a copy because I want to read it again. So I would definitely recommend that. Next, I read a Stranger Things graphic novel, which if I can find a cover, then I'll put that here. And it was just like a sort of collection of 3 stories that sort of fall between the series. I think it's between first and second, and then one of them is like something that's happening in the background of between season 1 and 2, and then one that's happening between seasons 2 and 3. I'm not sure, but that sort of time, it's like some of the things that's happening in the background, some of the things that's happened between seasons. It was enjoyable, it was fun. I gave it 4 stars. I don't feel there's much more I need to say about it. If you're not interested in Stranger Things, you're not gonna like it. If you are interested in Stranger Things, give it a try. Then last in February, I read Like Water for Chocolate by Laura Esquivel. I really, really enjoyed this book. It had chocolat feelings, if you've read chocolat, or I haven't read it, to be fair. I've watched chocolat. But it had that similar kind of like inherited magic. There's a lot of food descriptions. Yeah. Trigger warnings again, I would say. Check trigger warnings again. Yeah, definitely check trigger warnings. I really enjoyed this book. It was beautifully written, and I love the way that it's set out. It's like each chapter is a month of a year and a food. Like, it's all really rooted in meals and food. So like there's a recipe, and then she tells you how to make the recipe throughout the story that's kind of linked to that recipe. So it doesn't take place over a year, it takes place over quite a few years, but it's like each month has its own recipe, and the reason why that recipe is like, or that month is important to her story. So really, really beautifully written. Really liked the way that it was linked in with the food. So I would recommend that. That was a 4.5 star read as well. So then my January books were Cinnamon Bun Bookstore and Strawberry Patch Pancake House, which were from the Dream Harbour series, Laurie Gilmore. Really like those. I think possibly by the point that I read it, Strawberry Patch Pancake House was my favourite, but check trigger warnings for that one, because I read it fresh with a baby and found some of the bits quite difficult to read in a way that made it a very different feel of book. It's not like, it is cozy, but it's not cozy in the same way. That it's definitely got a different vibe to it. It's gotten sunny again, so I'll take my glasses off again. Yeah, it had definitely got a different vibe to it, but it was still really good. And like I say, up until that point, it was my favourite. I then have since read, I read them slightly out of order, so I've read one more, and that one's not my favourite, but I'll talk about that another time. I can't see my list now because it's too far away, because I'm very blind. Just hold it here where I can read it. So I read those. I then read Lightfall, which is by Tim Probert. That's a graphic novel. That was really, really cute. I can't really remember much about it to tell you about it. It was like unlikely friends going on an adventure. There's 3 out, I think, and I would like to check out the others because it was really sweet and really really nice, cozy read and interesting. So I'd like to know how the story progresses. I read This Winter by Alice Oseman, which is a Heartstopper series novella, and it all takes place, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, it all takes place on Christmas Day. Definitely check trigger warnings for that one. But that was a really nice addition to the Heartstopper series. I think I might be 1 or 2 behind on the graphic novel book story, so I need to catch up on that because I really love that series. Then I read Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan. That was a short book. Gave that 4.5 stars. I've read two books by Claire Keegan recently, and I enjoyed both of them. Small Things Like These was I like the way that she is able to make a character have so much character development in such a short book. So I definitely like that from a sort of writing craft point of view. So if you're interested in something short but that's really got a lot of story to it, I would recommend it. Squinting desperately at my book. And then the last thing that I finished during January was Tender as the Flesh by Augustina, oh, I can't read that, Bazarica. No, that's not how you say her name. I can't read my own writing. Bazarica. that was a 5-star read for me. I really, really enjoyed it. It's a cannibal book, so trigger warnings for that. It's I thought it was a really interesting sort of discussion about morals and like with the food that we eat. It was interesting from a kind of political point of view. I think I would like there to have been a little bit more of the politics of it. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil it if you haven't read it and you do read it. But there's definitely something in there that's mentioned to do with like the government that I would have liked to have been explored a bit further. Possibly it would have made it a different kind of book, and it could have been maybe a bit heavier, which is bizarre given that it's a book about cannibals. Let's say that it would be heavier, that it could be heavier. Yeah, there's definitely scenes in it that I didn't love reading, but it's a cannibal book, so I wasn't necessarily expecting to love every moment. It was not as much of a cannibal book as I was expecting it to be. There was a point where I was reading it, and I'd been reading it for a little while, and then somebody just mentioned something about eating people in a rather casual way, and I had completely forgotten it was a book about cannibals, or like about cannibalism, and I was momentarily shocked that somebody was so blasé talking about eating people, and then I was like, oh yeah, no, I remember now, this is actually a book about that in general. So yeah, I thought it was interesting. I did have to sort of suspend disbelief a little bit because you know, the idea, if you're not familiar with the book, the idea is that there's a virus that has made all animals like poisonous to eat and to be around, and so all animals have been like killed, and people don't have pets or anything like that anymore, and so because of this they're looking for like an alternative meat source, but my initial thought of this was, well, would we not just all be vegetarian? Because vegetarians do survive successfully. So I had to say to myself, no, that's not the point of the book, it's speculative fiction, like it's a what if. So yes, let's put aside the fact that if we couldn't eat animals anymore, I think we would just not eat animals, would just not eat meat. I could be wrong, that could just be me. Maybe people would be like well on board with cannibalism, but yeah, I thought there was also sort of an interesting discussion, or there's the potential for an interesting discussion about what makes a person, and so yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. Definitely it's 5 stars. I do think there was maybe a couple of things that I would have liked to have been explored a little bit more, but I did really enjoy it. I think it was my favourite book of January, and I was really torn with February about what my favourite book for February was going to be, because I had such a great reading month in February. I put Sunrise on the Reaping down as my favourite. I still haven't decided if that's what I want to go with. I feel like it could be like Water for Chocolate. I don't know. So we'll have to find out later. So that was my reading for January and February, and I've talked for so long that I think I probably will leave it at that. Milo, my goodness. I have counted up the current books on my TBR. Sorry if this little grizzly bean is so loud that you can't concentrate on what I'm saying. Hey, what's this? I counted up all of the books that are currently on my physical TBR, and I have been buying a lot of books recently because I did this last month and I had fewer books on my physical TBR than I currently have. My physical TBR is currently, or as of the day before yesterday, it was 85 books. That includes 2 books that I have started but that I'm not very far through, and I've put them on pause, so I kind of still counted them as being on my TBR. It doesn't include the book that I'm currently like actively reading. I unhauled a book, so I was like, yes, 84. And then yesterday I bought a book, so my TBR is back up to 85. I would like to get that down considerably. I am going to have a look through my TBR and see if there are any books on there that really I'm just not going to read. I did a video, I haven't posted it yet, of books that I want to read this year, otherwise I'm going to get rid of them. I think a couple of those might just have to go, because I don't think I'm going to read them. I think if I'm going to read them, it's going to be because I own them and I feel like I should, when really I could just unhaul them because I've had them for years and I haven't read them. So I don't know. I might still do that video with those ones that I'm thinking of unhauling, and then you can tell me whether or not I should read them before I get rid of them. Yeah, I've got a few, maybe I did talk about this in my plans for the year, actually. Maybe I did talk about it, because now I'm remembering talking to somebody in the comments about Brandon Sanderson book. So I must have mentioned it, because the Brandon Sanderson book, whatever it's called, The Final Empire, the Mistborn trilogy, the first one in that, I'm looking at it and it feels so intimidating right now that I just don't think I'm going to get to it anytime soon. So maybe that's all going to go. I don't know, I've got a few shorter Brandon Sandersons. I'm just not really loving that sort of really high fantasy at the moment. On my Kindle I'm reading A Pirate's Life for Tea, and even though that's cosy, just the level of fantasy to it, I'm just not getting into it. It's really weird, isn't it? I'd read nothing but fantasy, and now I just feel like I don't want to read fantasy. Like magical realism, fine, but I'm really enjoying more kind of like literary fiction at the moment, which is definitely something that I never thought that I would say. Definitely much more of a fantasy person, I thought, but there we go. Right, this bean is clearly unhappy. I've got something in my eye. Oh gosh, how do people who don't wear glasses cope with, like, you know, how frequently stuff gets in their eyes? I'm very tired and out of practice from talking on the camera. I feel like I look really strange without my glasses on. Oh. Sorry if I'm completely like unrecognisable to you and you're like, no, I couldn't possibly watch a video with Becky not wearing any glasses. I should get it. Okay, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again soon, I hope, talking about more books, talking about crafting. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye!